I held the thick envelope from Columbia University in my hands, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it. 4 years of late nights, sacrificed weekends, and countless cups of coffee had led to this moment. The acceptance letter felt heavy with promise, with the future I had been dreaming about since freshman year. My grandmother Margaret had set up a trust fund when I was born, $200,000, specifically for my college education. Everything was falling into place. That night, my parents called an emergency family meeting. My sister Amber sat on the couch with a strange smile. My father cleared his throat and said the words that would shatter everything. "We need to talk about your college fund, Kyle. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever had to fight for what is rightfully yours, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to show you what happens when family loyalty gets twisted into manipulation." It was late spring, and I had just turned 18 years old. The acceptance letter from Columbia University Economics program sat on my desk like a trophy. I could not stop staring at it. I had called my best friends, posted about it on social media, and even my teachers at school congratulated me. This was not just any college. This was Columbia, one of the Ivy League schools in New York City. The school I had visited during junior year and fallen in love with immediately. The trust fund my grandmother Margaret had established was something I had known about my entire life. She was 72 years old now, a retired lawyer who had worked her way up from nothing. She understood the value of education in a way that ran bone deep. When I was born, she had set aside $200,000 in a trust specifically for my college expenses. She told me once when I was about 12 that education was the one thing nobody could ever take away from me. My family was solidly middle class. My father, Richard, worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and my mother, Patricia, had been an elementary school teacher before retiring early due to health issues. We lived in a comfortable 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but we never went without. Then there was Amber. My sister was 27 years old, 9 years older than me. She had started college right after high school, enrolled in a communications program at a state university. But halfway through her sophomore year, she dropped out. The official reason was that college was not the right fit for her. The real reason, as far as I could tell from family whispers, was that she would rather party than study. Since then, Amber had bounced around from job to job. She worked in sales for a while then, as a social media manager for a small company that went under, then as a receptionist at a dental office. Nothing ever seemed to stick. She was charming and pretty, and people liked her initially, but she had a pattern of burning bridges wherever she went. 3 days after I received my acceptance letter, everything changed. It was a Friday evening around 7 o'clock. My father called me down to the living room. His voice had that serious tone that made my stomach clench. When I walked in, I found my mother sitting on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands. Amber was there too, perched next to her boyfriend Brad, who worked in marketing. Both of them looked almost giddy. The atmosphere felt wrong. Too formal, too staged. My father gestured for me to sit in the armchair across from them. I sat down slowly, my eyes moving from face to face, trying to read what was coming. Richard folded his hands and leaned forward. "Kyle, we need to have a serious conversation about your future. And about the family." Before I could respond, Amber practically bounced in her seat. "I have amazing news," Brad proposed. "We are getting married." I forced a smile, though confusion swirled in my chest. "That is great, Amber. Congratulations." I looked at Brad, who gave me a thumbs up. My mother, Patricia, spoke next, her voice gentle but rehearsed. "And we have been thinking, sweetheart. Amber deserves the wedding of her dreams. She has been through so much these past few years." My father jumped in. "The trust fund your grandmother set up, it is a lot of money. $200,000. That is more than most people spend on their entire college education." I felt cold suddenly. Where was this going? Richard continued. We think it would be fair if Amber used that money for her wedding. You are smart, Kyle. You can go to a state university, maybe take out some student loans like everyone else does. Plenty of people do it. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat there frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. Wait. What I finally managed. That money is for my college education. Grandma set it up specifically for me. Amber leaned forward, her expression shifting to something that looked practiced, almost rehearsed. Kyle, you are incredibly smart. You will get scholarships, financial aid, all of that. You have options. I only get married once in my life. This is my one special day. My father nodded. This is about family, son. About helping each other out. We are asking you to be generous, to think about someone other than yourself. My mother added, her voice wavering slightly. Columbia is overpriced anyway, Kyle. You will get the same quality education at a state school. Plenty of successful people went to public universities. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My brain felt like it had short-circuited. They wanted me to give up Columbia, to hand over my entire future so my sister could have an expensive wedding. Amber smiled sweetly. We are giving you 2 weeks to think about it, but Brad and I really want to start planning. The venue we want books up fast. I stood up without saying anything and walked out of the room. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on my bed in complete silence. The world felt like it was collapsing around me. The next morning, I tried to approach my father privately. I found him in his home office working on spreadsheets for a client. I knocked softly and stepped inside. Dad, can we talk about last night? He did not look up from his computer. What is there to talk about, Kyle? We made our position clear. I sat down in the chair across from his desk. Columbia has an economics law track program that is one of the best in the country. The internship opportunities on Wall Street, the networking, the professors. This is not just about prestige. This is about my career. Richard finally looked at me, his expression flat. Plenty of successful people did not go to Ivy League schools. Kyle, your mother and I both went to state universities, and we turned out fine. But Grandma set that money aside for me, for my education. And we are your parents, he said coldly. We are asking you to help your sister. That is what families do. I left his office feeling hollow. Later that afternoon, I tried talking to my mother while she was folding laundry in the living room. She had always been the softer one, the one who would listen. Mom, please. You know how hard I have worked for this. Patricia looked at me with sad eyes. Amber has had such a rough few years, honey. She needs this. She needs something to look forward to. You have your whole life ahead of you. What about my life ahead? I asked, hearing the desperation in my own voice. She just shook her head and went back to folding towels. That is when I started to feel truly betrayed. Not by strangers, but by the two people who were supposed to protect me, to prioritize my future. Over the next few days, I started digging. I went through Amber's social media accounts, something I rarely did. What I found made my blood run cold. On her Instagram, she had been posting about wedding planning to her friends. One post said, "Finally getting my dream wedding budget is $200,000. Another showed a Pinterest board filled with images of luxury venues, designer dresses that cost $15,000 each, and honeymoon destinations in the Maldives. Then, I overheard a conversation I was not meant to hear. I had come home early from the library one evening and walked past Amber's partially open bedroom door. She was on the phone with Brad, her voice casual and confident. "Do not worry about the money, babe. My parents are handling it. They will get it from Kyle. He will not fight back. He never does. He is too nice." Brad's response was muffled, but I heard Amber laugh. "Trust me, my parents already think it is fair. They have always felt guilty about me dropping out. This is their way of making it up to me." I stood in the hallway, my fists clenched, feeling like I might throw up. Amber had planned this. She had manipulated our parents, knowing they carried guilt about her failures, and was using that guilt to steal my future. The pressure from my family only increased after that. My father started making passive-aggressive comments at dinner. "I hope you are thinking about what is best for everyone, Kyle. Not just yourself." My mother would sigh loudly whenever I walked into a room, as if my mere presence was a burden. Then, the extended family got involved. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, called me one evening. "Kyle, honey, I heard about the situation with Amber's wedding. I just think you should do the right thing here. Family comes first." I realized my parents had been campaigning, painting me as the selfish younger brother who would not help his struggling sister. At family dinners, conversations would stop when I entered the room. I was being frozen out, isolated, made to feel like the villain in a story I had not written. One night, Amber confronted me directly in the kitchen. "I always knew you were selfish, Kyle. I helped raise you when Mom was working. I changed your diapers. I babysat you. And this is how you repay me." My father delivered what felt like an ultimatum, though he phrased it gently. "If you do not do this, Kyle, it will damage our family forever. People will remember that you put your own ambitions above your sister's happiness." My mother cried at the dinner table. "How can you break your sister's heart like this? After everything we have done for you." I felt like I was drowning. That is when I decided to visit my grandmother Margaret. I drove the 30-minute trip to her house on a Saturday afternoon. She lived in a small but well-kept ranch home with a beautiful garden she tended herself. When she saw my car pull up, she smiled and waved from where she was pruning roses. But her smile faded the moment she saw my face. "Kyle, sweetheart, what is wrong?" We sat on her back porch, and I told her everything. I tried to keep my voice steady, but halfway through tears started streaming down my face. I told her about the demand, about the pressure, about Amber's manipulation, about feeling like I was losing my family over something that was supposed to be mine. My grandmother's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "They want to do what?" She stood up, pacing the porch. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but in that moment, she seemed 10 feet high. "Kyle, listen to me very carefully. That trust fund was set up with very specific legal language. It was created solely for your college education expenses. Your parents cannot touch that money. Legally, they have no claim to it. But they said I should just give it to Amber." Margaret's eyes blazed. "Did your father explain to you how the trust works? Did he tell you that he and your mother are not even listed as trustees?" I shook my head. She went inside and came back with a thick folder of documents. She sat down next to me and walked me through the paperwork. The trust had been established in 2006, the year I was born. The sole beneficiary was listed as Kyle Anderson, for educational purposes only. The trustees were my grandmother and a representative from the bank. "Your parents knew all of this," she said quietly. "They knew they had no legal right to that money, but they were hoping you did not know. They were hoping you would just hand it over." The betrayal I felt in that moment was crushing. My own parents had lied to me. They had tried to manipulate me into giving up my future. Margaret took my hand. "We are going to fight this, sweetheart. I will not let them steal your future. I am calling my lawyer on Monday." I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks, but it was mixed with a deep, aching sadness. Fighting for my future meant going to war with my own family. The 2 weeks they had given me to decide came and went. On the final evening, my parents called another family meeting. This time, the atmosphere was icy. We all sat in the living room. My father, my mother, Amber, Brad, and me. Richard folded his arms. "Kyle, what is your decision?" I took a deep breath. I talked to Grandma Margaret. She explained how the trust actually works. It is set up exclusively for my education. It is not something you can just transfer to Amber. My mother's face went red. Your grandmother is trying to control us from beyond the grave. She has no right to interfere in our family decisions. She is not dead, Mom. And it is not her interfering. It is her protecting me. Amber exploded. You are ruining my life, Kyle. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? I have already told all my friends about my dream wedding. Now what am I supposed to say? Maybe you should tell them the truth, I said quietly. That you tried to steal money that was not yours. My father stood up, his voice rising. If you do not sign over that money, Kyle, you are no longer welcome in this house. I mean it. You can pack your things and leave. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I pulled out my phone, my hands surprisingly steady. Before you kick me out, there is something you all need to see. I opened the screenshots I had saved from Amber's social media. I held the phone out so everyone could see. Amber has been telling her friends the wedding budget is $350,000, not $200,000. Brad's parents agreed to cover $100,000. Amber needs $200,000 from me, and the remaining $50,000 from you two. My parents stared at the screen, then at Amber. Patricia turned to her. $350,000. You told us $200,000. Amber stammered. That is the average cost for a nice wedding these days, Mom. Everyone spends that much. And I overheard you on the phone with Brad? I continued. You said I would not fight back, that I never do. This was all calculated. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. I walked to the front door and opened it. My grandmother Margaret stood there dressed in a navy blue pantsuit, her expression severe. Next to her was a man in his 60s, wearing a crisp suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Mom, my father said, standing up. This is a family matter. You should not be here. It became a legal matter, Margaret said coldly, when you tried to steal from my grandson. The man stepped forward. I am Gerald Harrison, Mrs. Anderson's attorney. I am here to clarify a few things about the trust fund in question. He opened his briefcase and pulled out documents, laying them on the coffee table. This trust was established in 2006. The sole beneficiary is Kyle Anderson. The funds are designated explicitly and exclusively for educational purposes. The trustees are Mrs. Margaret Anderson and First National Bank. Neither Richard Anderson nor Patricia Anderson have any legal authority over these funds. He looked up at my parents. If you continue to pressure Kyle to relinquish his rights to this trust, we will pursue legal action for coercion and undue influence. My father tried to argue. We are his parents. We should have a say in his future. You forfeited that right, Margaret said, her voice like steel, when you tried to manipulate him into giving up his education for a party. Amber started crying angry tears. This is all your fault, Kyle. My wedding is completely ruined. How could you do this to me? Something inside me finally snapped. I stood up, and when I spoke, my voice was stronger than I had ever heard it. Amber, you dropped out of college. Grandma wanted to pay for your education too. She would have set up a fund for you if you had finished. But you quit. You had your chance at that money, and you chose to leave. She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going. Now, you want to take my future for a one-day party. This is not about family. This is about you wanting something you did not earn. Something you have no right to. My mother gasped. How dare you speak to your sister like that? I turned to my parents. You taught me to work hard, to value education, to chase my dreams. And now you want me to throw all of that away. Grandma did not set up this trust for Amber's wedding. She set it up for my future, for my education. And I am going to Columbia, with or without your blessing. My father's face was hard as stone. Then I guess it is without. I nodded slowly. I guess it is. I walked upstairs to my bedroom and started packing. I took my laptop, my important documents, my clothes, my books. I moved mechanically, numbly. I could hear Amber crying downstairs, my mother's voice trying to comfort her. My father arguing with Mr. Harrison. When I came back down with my duffel bags, my grandmother was waiting by the door. My father stood in the hallway, arms crossed. If you walk out that door, Kyle, do not expect to come back. I looked at him for a long moment. Then, I looked at my mother who was crying, but saying nothing. Finally, I looked at Amber, who glared at me with pure hatred. I hope someday you will understand, I said quietly. This is not about hurting you. It is about saving myself. And I walked out. As we drove away in my grandmother's car, I looked back at the house where I had grown up. The windows glowed warm and yellow in the twilight. I felt like I was leaving behind more than just a building. I was leaving behind the family I thought I had. But I was also stepping into the future I had earned. The summer before college was the hardest period of my life. I stayed with my grandmother in her small house, sleeping in the guest room that still had wallpaper from the 1980s. Every morning I woke up hoping to see a text or missed call from my parents. Every morning, my phone was empty. I checked Amber's social media obsessively, even though I knew it was unhealthy. She had posted a long, vague status about family betrayal and how some people only care about themselves. The comments were filled with supportive messages from her friends. Poor Amber, you deserve better. Family should stick together. Nobody knew the whole story, but they did not need to. Amber had always been good at playing the victim. Some extended family members unfriended me on social media. My cousin Taylor sent me a message saying she was disappointed in me. My uncle stopped responding to my texts. My grandmother noticed I was struggling. She made an appointment for me with a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, who specialized in family dynamics. Wait, I need to change this name since Chen is on the banned list. My grandmother noticed I was struggling. She made an appointment for me with a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Helen Brenner, who specialized in family dynamics. In our first session, I broke down completely. I cried harder than I had in years, ugly crying, the kind where you cannot catch your breath. Dr. Brenner handed me tissues and waited patiently. When I finally calmed down, she said something that shifted everything. Setting boundaries is not selfish, Kyle. It is self-preservation. Your family asked you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. You refusing to do that does not make you the villain. Over the next few weeks, I worked through the guilt, the anger, the grief. Because it was grief. I was mourning the family I thought I had, the parents I believed would always put my well-being first. In August, I packed up my grandmother's car and drove to New York City. The drive took about 4 hours. My grandmother came with me to help me move into my dorm. Columbia's campus was everything I had dreamed it would be. The historic buildings, the diverse student body, the energy of the city surrounding us. When I walked through the gates for the first time as an actual student, I felt something I had not felt in months. Hope. My roommate was a guy named Jordan from San Diego, California. He was majoring in computer science and had a relaxed, easygoing personality that immediately put me at ease. We stayed up late that first night, talking about our families, our goals, our fears. When I told him a simplified version of what had happened with my family, he shook his head. Man, that is brutal. But you are here now. You made it. That takes guts. Over the first few weeks, I threw myself into college life. I joined a study group for my macroeconomics class. I met people from all over the world, people with stories far more difficult than mine. My economics professor, Professor Williams, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, took an interest in my work. She became an informal mentor, helping me navigate the rigorous academic environment. I joined the debate club and discovered I had a talent for argumentation. Maybe all those fights with my family had prepared me for something after all. My grandmother called every Sunday evening without fail. Sometimes we talked for an hour. She never said "I told you," so never made me feel like I owed her anything. She just listened, encouraged, and reminded me that I had made the right choice. Through my grandmother, I heard bits and pieces about what was happening back home. Amber's wedding had happened in early October. It was much smaller than she had planned. Brad's family contributed what they had promised, and my parents had dipped into their retirement savings to cover the rest. The venue was a local country club, instead of the luxury estate she had wanted. The dress was off the rack instead of custom designer. The honeymoon was a long weekend in Florida, instead of 2 weeks in the Maldives. My grandmother told me my mother had cried through most of the ceremony. A year later, I heard through the family grapevine that Amber and Brad were having problems. Brad was upset about credit card debt Amber had racked up. She had been spending beyond their means trying to maintain a lifestyle they could not afford. I felt a pang of sadness for my sister, but I also knew that her choices were not my responsibility. During my second year at Columbia, something unexpected happened. I received an email from my father. The subject line was simple: "Can we talk?" The email itself was brief. "Kyle, I know I do not have the right to ask this, but I would like to see you. To talk. I realize now that we handled things badly. Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking. Please let me know if you would be willing to meet. Dad." I stared at that email for 3 weeks before responding. Finally, I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop near campus. It was a Saturday afternoon in November. The city was cold leaves swirling on the sidewalks. When I walked into the cafe, my parents were already there sitting at a corner table. My father looked older, more tired. My mother had lost weight, her face drawn. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before my father spoke. "I was wrong, Kyle. We were wrong. I let Amber manipulate me. I let guilt over her dropping out cloud my judgment. I asked you to sacrifice your future for something frivolous, and that was unforgivable." My mother reached across the table, tears in her eyes. "We should have protected you. We should have stood up for you. Instead, we made you feel like your dreams did not matter. I am so sorry, Kyle." I sat there feeling a complicated mix of emotions: relief, anger, sadness, love. "I forgive you," I said slowly. "But things cannot go back to how they were. I cannot pretend that what happened did not happen." "We understand," my father said. "We just want the chance to be in your life again, even if it is different." We talked for 2 hours that day. I told them about my classes, my friends, my plans for the future. They told me about their lives, about the regrets they carried. We did not talk about Amber. That wound was still too fresh. After that day, we started rebuilding. Slowly, carefully. We had dinner once a month when I was home during breaks. We texted occasionally. But I maintained boundaries. I did not rely on them financially. I did not share everything with them. I had learned that trust once broken takes years to rebuild. Amber never apologized. According to my grandmother, she still believed she was the wronged party. She and I did not speak. I made peace with the fact that we might never have a relationship again. Now, in my 3rd year at Columbia, I have a strong GPA, and I am applying for internships at law firms. I have discovered that I love the intersection of economics and law, the way legal frameworks shape financial systems. I am thinking about law school after graduation. My relationship with my grandmother is stronger than ever. She comes to visit once a semester, and we explore the city together. She tells me stories about her own struggles, her own fights to build a life. She tells me she is proud of me, not just for my academic success, but for standing up for myself when it mattered most. My parents and I are cordial now. We will never be as close as we once were, and I have accepted that. Some relationships survive betrayal, but they are forever changed. That is okay. I would rather have an honest, boundaried relationship than a false one built on resentment. Looking back, I understand that I was put in an impossible position. I was asked to choose between my future and my family, a choice no child should ever have to make. I chose myself, and while it cost me dearly, I would make the same choice again. Sometimes the hardest battles are not against strangers, but against the people who are supposed to love you most. Standing up for your future, for your dreams, is never selfish. It is survival. And if protecting what is rightfully yours means losing people along the way, maybe they were never really on your side to begin with. I chose my future. And I would make that choice again every single time. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up against family pressure? Have you ever been asked to give up something important for someone else's benefit? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that choosing yourself is not selfish. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that your dreams are worth fighting for. Stay strong out there.